Have the quorum?
Yeah, we have the quorum. We have and participants will keep trickling in, I think. We have our student panel also here.
Is there somebody who's centrally monitoring the? Otherwise, you'll have too many crosstalks. So somebody
So
should
as I
centrally mute everybody.
Yes, yeah. I am welcoming everybody. Please welcome to this webinar. And we have a very eminent speaker with us. Mr. Shyam Srinivasan took charge as the Managing Director and CEO of Federal Bank.
Movement details of I think
guys, may I request, yes, may I request everybody to mute themselves, please. May I request all participants to please mute yourselves. So Mr. Shyam Srinivasan joined Federal Bank equipped with experience over 20 years with leading multinational banks in India, the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Stanchart Citibank being some of them. He is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta, which I say very proudly, and Regional Engineering College, Trichy. He has completed a leadership development program from the London Business School and also has served on the Global Executive Forum, that is the top 100 executives of Standard Chartered Bank from 2004 to 2010. So I will not, rather than elaborating more on his many achievements, we will start this webinar. Moderating it is, of course, our director, Dr. Ajay Pathak. Dr. Pathak did his engineering from IIT Kharagpur and subsequently his PhD also from IIT Kharagpur. He was in banking for 25 years before joining academia, and he has been the director of IBS Kolkata for the last 10 years. We have three students who form the student panel, but as we have said, we want questions from everybody in the audience. Faculty, students from other colleges, everybody, industry persons. Only thing is, I would request you to kindly mute your screens. And the other thing is that when you have a question, please post it in the chat box and the moderator will give you an opportunity to ask the question. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Pathak.
A very good morning to all of you. Mr. Shyam Srinivasan, it has been a great pleasure that you are here. We welcome you once again and we are honored with your presence. My dear faculty members, the students from IBS Kolkata, students from IBS Pune, and also the executives from Federal Bank who have joined this webinar. Yeah, please put yourself on mute. Because
I would say somebody centrally mute everybody.
Just tell the person who's conducting it to do this.
Yeah, just centrally control it. Otherwise, it'll be messy.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yes. The topic today for this webinar is FinTech in banking and the years ahead. Topic itself is something really very exciting for, particularly for bankers, because I'm an ex-banker, and for Mr. Srinivasan also. Yeah, who's there? Kaushik, please ensure that they're all on mute, other than the speakers.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, Amit, please see to it that all are kept on a mute.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will have we'll get disturbed. So the topic is really very exciting, particularly for bankers like us. I'm an ex-banker, and Mr. Srinivasan is also there, and other executives from Federal Bank is there. If you see, I'll just put some few points out here before we start the discussion, and before I request Mr. Shyam Srinivasan to give his thoughts for 15 minutes, and then.
It is correct.
They muted you also.
Been muted, so I have to unmute myself. Okay, right. So if you see the overall picture about fintech companies, I was just going through some of the articles and I find that the present market is about $108 billion all across the world. And it is expected to grow at the rate of 25% CAGR. And by 2022, it is expected to reach $300+ billion. So it is something which we are all, we would like to have these fintech companies and fintech in banking sector. Just give you which are the fintech companies. So we have Paytm, we have other companies also. But what has happened in the past 10 years, banking scenario has undergone a change. Technology has been the biggest platform in the banking sector, and now it is giving a lot of benefits, lot of benefits to the customers, and customers are having, they are getting satisfaction. They are, having the delight of using these wallets. If you see the wallets of various banks, they have incorporated several features out there. You can now do utility payments, you can pay your insurance premium, you can book food on Zomato, Swiggy, whatever you want, you can do it. So what has happened in the past is now the bank has linked the various shopkeepers, various utility bill payments, whatever we are doing, we are now linked to these banks' wallets. And these fintech companies are ultimately going to be the real game changer. What are the drivers of this fintech? Fintech will, the drivers of this fintech will be virtually the technology. If you see, there are 2,100 plus fintech companies in India. Some of them are startups and some of them are, virtually trying to work on themselves and see to it that they reach the unicorn status. If you see the overall picture, one is peer-to-peer lending has started, and this may impact the banking sector. But how will it happen? We do not know. People are taking, from cloud computing, they're having that assistance and see to it that they keep their cost low and use this to ensure that the customers are connected to the banking sector. Now, they cannot survive on its own. Particularly, they will have to link it to the banks because there are a lot of regulatory issues and people are slightly scared, basically trying to understand what will be the cyber, breaches which are happening. So the trust on technology is not fully there. Another thing which is going to happen is the insurance technology. What is this insurance technology? Insurance technology will ensure that people, do not pay more premium than what is required. Just an example to tell you that, say, if you are parking your car, now for 7 months, virtually the cars were parked. The company will come to know that you are not using a car. So the premium payments will go down. This is one of the use of the insurance technology, which can be done through artificial intelligence. So these are some of the thoughts I wanted to indicate to everybody. And now I would request Mr. Shyam Srinivasan to speak for 15-20 minutes as per his convenience and guide us. What will be the future? What has been the past problem in these areas, and how fintech companies will be the game changer in next 5 years down the line? Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Pathak, Madam Durga, and the other faculty members, and of course, students. And I noticed some of my colleagues in the bank are also there. So good morning, everybody. When I think Madam Durga spoke to me some time back and said I should speak to all of you. And she said the topic is fintech in banking and future trends. Now, let me just share some thoughts around this. Firstly, I think this is probably the most discussed topic in modern times. Even more so as you've got into this pandemic-led world, it's almost become second nature, and the conversations are drifting towards this, by accident or by design. So last night when I Googled to see other topics on fintech in banking, and I'm not kidding, it was about close to 1 crore hits with it. I'm not kidding. It's close to 1 crore hits. And again, just for effect, I tried it this morning. It had crossed 1 crore hits. So within a 12-hour period, unless all of us in this room, because you are attending a panel where Googling, this is real of hits, just dramatically shift. And what does it suggest? It suggests that it's a highly researched, highly discussed, highly contextual, highly relevant topic. And probably there's too much information that's floating around on it. And I'm certainly no expert on it to give you nuances and details. Even Professor Pathak had some very good insights. So I'll try and give you the underlying themes that are defining fintech, right? The underlying themes that may define how manufacturers and consumers of data and money will and are likely to shape themselves in the coming years. And this, I have to admit, is just a collection of thoughts of mine, and there is no definitive view on it, but it's certainly a practitioner's view. So I'd ask you to keep that in mind and try and use that as a reference as we wait into the conference, and we can have a longer chat, because I have not come prepared for a long presentation. But having said that, let me just give you some of my opening remarks and the themes that I believe will dictate how fintech is shaping in the world in the period ahead. Many, many years ago, and that's probably why the visionary he is, Bill Gates said in his book, Road Ahead, banks will not be important, but banking will be important. This he said 25 years back. And today it's absolutely true. And it is so relevant, and probably even more relevant in all that we are talking and doing. And as people who are interested in this space, who are watching or practicing or likely to be bankers yourselves, it's crucial to understand, what does this whole thing mean, right? Does it mean that physically banks will disappear? I would argue not. But does the theme of physical branches as we know them to be, will it take new shape and size and may, sort of dwindle in passage of time? It's likely. Again, in a large country like ours, with so many unbanked and underbanked people, it's not likely to evaporate in no time, but for sure, over a period of a few months, few years, it may start morphing. So I think what we must keep in mind as we have this conversation is to understand the principles or the themes that may shape the future of fintech. So allow me to give you 5 themes as I've thought through, and we can sort of elaborate on it in our conversations subsequently. The first, and I think important thing in this whole journey of fintech is around what I call is the immediacy, right? Everything is around now. In whatever activities we are all participating in, however we are doing, there is a sense of, I want it here and now. Now, this is an underlying theme, not just in banking. It's all that we do as people, and certainly for the relatively restless, younger, millennial, Gen Z crowd, the immediacy theme is of profound importance. For them, everything has to be here now and in the most intuitive manner. You don't want to, if I gave an iPhone to a 5-year-old kid, he's not rifling through a manual to how to use it. It's just that it's intuitive. He understands it and he just does a few things, and he or she starts becoming a user, and then he sort of gets addicted. So I think the first underlying theme as we look at fintech in banking and look at the way forward, we must keep in mind the theme of immediacy as a fundamental dictate in how all design is constructed, how the architecture of how the future will shape up. And when I say future, I'm not talking about many years out, and it's happening under our nose today. As we speak, things are changing. We left office on Friday evening in one construct. I could go back on Monday morning and a couple of new launches would have happened, because somebody sitting in a garage somewhere is daily discovering, inventing all different and easier ways of doing things that are certainly beginning to influence all that we do. So one is immediacy. The other, and leading on from there, is the thing of, is it contextual, right? In the new order of things, everything has to be not just in abstract, but it has to be contextual. It has to be relevant to the times we are in, to the situation we are in. So again, this is another design principle in constructing the fintech in banking. So when I say contextual, I'll give you a live example. At the break of the pandemic, as all of us were sort of holed up at homes and were nervous to step out, but you know that branches of banks were an essential service and need to be kept open, right? And it's not that the bankers were immune to the problem. We also had our set of challenges. We had families, our people had to care for that, but they were required to go to work. And customers were certainly, like all of us in this conference and the many who are not here, all had to do their banking requirements, while many shifted to a natural gravitation to digital, which I'll come to later, is the people who had to go to a branch to do their banking, they were nervous because there would be crowds, they would be sort of exposed to the virus. So one of our early contextual development was we created a very easy, simple to use portal where you could log in and you could book an appointment just as you would do to the passport office. So you went at an appointed time to your branch. Hopefully there were a lot less people there because there's an assigned time to you. The branch person knew who was coming, so they were prepared, you were prepared for the activity you wanted to do. And it just became quite a rage that a very simple app that was designed for the times we are in became contextually relevant. Now, would it have been best if I had launched it 1 year ago? Chances are not. So I think the point I'm trying to sort of impress on all ourselves is the whole theme of contextualizing in a world where everything is converging. Just as I said, immediacy and the other theme I would talk about is contextualizing the whole thing. Now, in all these things, we are all so used to everything being so easy, right? If you were to log into Amazon, it's almost, I would say, of course, it'll improve. And of course, over time, that'll get even better. But the user experience is near friction-free. It's not something that you have to sort of torture your mind to understand how to use it. It's literally 101. Anybody who's got an average sense of how to do things are able to accomplish that, irrespective of your age or experience or exposure. I think the third theme that prevails in this whole design of fintech and banking would be how friction-free or less friction or frictionless everything is turning out to be. And we've just, again, as an example, and I'm sure all of you are users of mobile banking of one bank or the other, you will find that every version update that comes from the banks makes it that much more convenient and comfortable to do the activity that what would have taken 8 strokes of data entry to accomplish the end use now is in 2 strokes, in about 3 strokes, or three keypad entries. So I think the design of everything that we do has to be a near intuitive, near error-free, near friction-free. I can't say it will be thoroughly friction-free because it's journey. So I think the other is the whole theme about how it's friction-free. As we move, these are design principles. As we go about it, is the other one would be how adaptive is the technology that you're using, right? Is it something that is flexible and sort of agile at the time you want, or is it something that is so legacy in its architecture that you are unable to meet client requirements in the shortest period of time? And I think here is the whole emergence of API, which I'm sure many of you are familiar, and I'm in the course of the conversations we can elaborate a bit more, or I will learn a little more from all of you. Is this whole thing about plug and play, right? How adaptive, how flexible, how the ecosystem of your banking, as all of us know, banking system is led by large legacy core banking solutions, right? We are at the end of the day custodians of public money. So our job is to make sure that it is firewalled, it's safe, it's protected, and you feel reassured that your money is well protected in this franchise or in this institution. But that said, we are also part of the same ecosystem that all of us are, and we want to provide customer the most highest degree of comfort, convenience, and ease of use. So the best way is create the capability that your core banking system talks to your various partners who are providing contemporary, easy to use solutions by creating the whole linkage between the systems. And that's why the whole API-led banking, and I'm happy to report that bank like Federal has invested in that capability. So the plug and play capability, the partnerships that we can develop is almost, I won't say near 0 days, but it's as shrunk as it can be. And I'm sure in passage of time, it'll only get better. So the theme about adaptiveness using the contemporary architecture. And the last theme is certainly around the immersiveness of everything. Immersive, intuitive are other themes that I would impress on. And it has to allow, we are only limited by the imagination that we have, because what we think are some outlandish offerings or benefits that we are giving today may look like child's play 3 years out. I recall About 5 years back, we were the first bank to come up with an offer that you could use your mobile phone as your bank passbook and you could notate on it. The moment the smartphone started becoming more popular, we created a capability called Fed Book, which basically you download your bank statement onto your phone and it allows you to play with it. You can notate it every time you withdraw cash, deposit cash, and it's an e-passbook. What looked like a great offering 5 years back looks like, what the hell, that's now par for the course. So I think the whole thing about imagination and immersiveness and limited by only how much we can think through is true. So if I sort of string these 5 themes together for your reference, about the first one is immediacy, the second is about contextual, third is about friction-free, the fourth is about adaptiveness, and the last is imagination and immersive. 2 things emerge when you get the 5 themes, and I hope the enlightened audience figured that it is ICFAI, which is what your institution is all about. And I do believe, young students, if you remember one thing in your life, you will not forget the name of the institute you came by. So I'm hoping that when you're done and dusted and long after I've forgotten you, you've forgotten me, these 5 alphabets mean something to you as you design fintech in banking over the years ahead. Because I do believe, we can have a long conversation around blockchain, artificial intelligence, data, monetization of digital. And, I can tell you a few, you can tell me many more. But I thought it's useful to just design and construct the first principles of how we want to design fintech and influence our architecture around this and establish the base upon which the whole fintech architecture of banking is emerging, will emerge. Frankly, these principles will live. The practices will change. Over passage of time, you will find somebody is outthinking this. The garage example of people sitting in garages in Bangalore, in Chandigarh, in Cochin, in Mumbai, in Chennai, wherever, they're discovering every moment one app, one new solution to a problem which we never thought existed. I'll give you two, 3 examples. During this lockdown, certainly people, all of us were holed up at homes or just lived in our own bubble. And many of our colleagues haven't met one another. We've recruited hundreds of people in this period who've come through a digital induction. So the level of physical engagement, which all of us long for, is not happening. We were looking out for many solutions of how do we integrate people, bring them all together, feel good about being part of a team. And our teams were coming up with, I think, many interesting solutions. But I was most pleased when a very young startup organization in Chennai called Puffalope put together a bunch of detective games online, which has got the whole bank hooked. I know over 1,000 of our employees, even as I speak, I think today, tomorrow, there are some events happening, have sort of voluntarily dialed into this program and have become great fans of that whole digital game, but even more so have become greatly connected with one another. Now, why am I quoting these? These are just live examples of how emergence of this whole technology is influencing the practice of people. And as bankers who are seeking to serve this universe of people who are requiring instant gratification, immediate solutions, embedded in, nobody wants, we've been celebrating WhatsApp, has now become a WhatsApp Pay starts out, I think today or whenever. And, you're in your message and you want to do a transaction. You don't have to log out, go into something. It's just going to happen seamlessly. So this whole seamlessness, this whole integration of various platforms, banks are embedded in ways of life. So I don't have to be intrusive. I am part of your life as a bank. That said, the whole just as we talk fintech, it flourishes only if there's regtech. The regulators have to keep pace. The technology that should enable regulators to stay up or ahead, because you don't want an unregulated space just creating a ruckus. So the bridge between fintech, regtech, and the whole level of intrusiveness and data security, privacy is going to be one big level of activity that's happening and is likely to unfold substantially. And many of our younger colleagues in this, I'm sure, will have opportunities to play one or all of the ecosystem. They could be the fintech providers, they could be the regtech controllers, they could be just the wonderful bridge that make sure that we are providing security and protection of data, of people, and the environment. Last point, I know I'm going on. So my very last point is from, I think, digitization of money, which is what this whole thing was. I think it's becoming monetization of data. That's the migration that's happening. It's from hugely focused on data digitization and money being digitized. That's how it started. And I've seen this journey for many years. It's in multiple organizations across time, which leverages technology. I think that whole journey is migrating from how deep and how brilliantly use data and yet not be intrusive and break privacy of people. So I'll park with that. Do recall ICFAI as the pillars of your construct of fintech in banking. With that, I will pause and happy to answer questions. And I hope something that can be quite productive.
Dr. Pathak, unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. It was great listening to you. In fact, the points which you raised are very relevant. And you talked about immediacy, you talked about contextual, friction-free, adaptive, immersive. And the last point was really very, something very, very great. Basically, monetization of the data. That's what we all strongly feel. Yes. Now, what we will do is we have the student panelist members are there. May I request Amarnath Trivedi to have this question? Yes, please. Amarnath, you're there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, for your valuable words. Sir, my question to you is, will fintech change stakeholders' mind from conventional to convenience change at any point of time?
I'm guessing stakeholder here, you mean the user or you mean the producer?
Both, sir.
No, I think, like I mentioned, we sometimes think about these things as something that's new, that's invading our lives. I actually think of this in some sense as a continuum with its own disruption. As in, there's a disruption and still moves to another level, and then it plays at that as a continuum. So I don't think you should view these as will it change? I think it is changing. The fact that you and I are discussing this whole conversation on a platform which we didn't know existed. I didn't know Zoom existed 8 months back. Right? Today I use this 5 times a day in some conference or the other, this or similar platforms. So I think we have to begin to believe that this the new sort of I don't know if disorder or the new unusual world or the new structure that we all live and work by, everything is changing and is likely to change at a pace much higher than we visualize. So in that context, will stakeholders see differently? Absolutely, yes. And I don't think it rests with fintech, it rests with medtech, right? If today we've all sort of accepted the fact for many of our health related, we could do a video call with your doctor and get your consultation going for fear of meeting personally. So I think this is the underlying architecture of engagement, human to human, device to device, we can talk about IoT separately, is redefining engagement. In that context, you can either see them as distinct events that but just cut back and think 5 years from now, these will look like a trailer. All that we are seeing today is a trailer of what is likely to happen 5 years out, or 5 years out, this may be just history. So I am no one to predict, but I can only guess that, and I'm not guess. I'm convinced that the changes are literally starting, and which is why, like Mr. Pathak was saying, this industry, which he said is 108 billion, can go treble, quadruple. I think it is undimensionable, because if you look at the level of unbanked people across the world, even in the most developed economies, there are over 2 trillion people unbanked. Sorry, 2 billion people unbanked. 2 billion people. Just apply the lowest GDP per capita on that 2 billion and look at how that can be monetized. You're talking of dimensions which are I don't know how many zeros that will be.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes. Yes. Amarnath, you raised the second question. Is it there?
Yes, sir. It's there, sir. So
Yeah.
my next question, the follow-up question to this was like, how risk management strategy of fintech will differ from traditional banking, sir?
Yeah, good question. I think in the traditional banking, and when I say traditional, I mean the very traditional era, there was an input and there's an output, and there's a passage of time between the input became the output, and there was a sort of a definitive, I don't know if that's such a word, definitive how it happened. In the new play, there is a substantial change. Take the whole emergence of blockchain technology, right? While the core is untouched, at the same time, you are touching the data, somebody else could be touching it in another place, and somebody else could be touching it in another place, and they could all be putting their own digital signature on it and sending that information or that construct. Now, in the normal path, you don't have that 360-degree view of how to risk manage it. In the new order, you now need to have your risk practices 360 degrees, and if there is a degree more than that, you need that level of eyes which watch and yet make it friction free. Because the moment you overload control, you introduce friction. So this risk balancing out friction in the new order is not something that is easy, which is why if you see NPCI has come out saying, partly comparative, partly also fear of explosive practices, that only up to 2 crore of the WhatsApp Pay people can be initially on the NPCI platform. I mean, these are restrictions that are initially put. I'm sure over time it will expand and open, or why the regulators held back certain things. So there is a heavy level of governance architecture that is required. But you don't want the governance architecture to burden the system that it becomes wasted. So answer your question, risk practices have to materially keep up, in fact, be ahead. Be ahead that it can capture the problem, but not arrest imagination, arrest creativity, and introduce friction. Not easy.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, the next question, sir, would be asked by Priya, sir.
Priya. Yes, Priya Shah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. Sir, my question to you, how fintech is disrupting the traditional banking?
How fintech is?
Disrupting
the traditional banking.
I think, all that I said a while back, it is, but whether it is disrupting or enabling depends on the player who is adapting or sleeping. If a bank is deciding to, no, my old practices will survive the time, they are living in a cave. But if the bank is up at the forefront saying, I am the disruptor, then it is not disrupting the bank. It is enabling the bank. So I think it's a situation of how you adapt, which I would say. It is true for everything, but certainly since you asked this question pointed on banking, I would say there are banks and there are banks. There are banks that will survive this. Some banks will just last. Some banks that will thrive. So I would think as an industry construct, many of the practices of the past don't have much room in the new order, right? So everybody, if you ask your granddad or your one generation or two generations before, and your generation or the next generation after you, every experience will be different. Today, Priya Saha, sitting where you are, within 30 seconds, you can open a bank account just by doing a video KYC, putting in your Aadhaar number, whatever, and the bank account, a transactable account is in your hand. Cut back one generation, it was an elaborate process. Fast forward one generation, you just have to imagine it in an account, it will come, because you'll be born with a chip, or there'll be a chip embedded the moment the kid comes out. And this is therefore fintech, all tech is dramatically altering. I would only argue it's not about disrupting. Disruption is your choice. You want to be disrupted or you want to be the disruptor.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Priya, next question you have?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, will agri-tech, health tech, and prop tech perform with the intersection with fintech?
I think so. I think so. See, again, let me just try and define banking as I see it, so that may help all of us. If you, at the core, what does a bank do? It is the ultimate clearing agent of money. Priya has money, Professor Pathak needs to receive it, or the reverse. The bank is the conduit for that. I am just an enabler. And then behind that, I do bookkeeping, housekeeping to make sure that the money is right. I also know because Priya is lending, she has got money, so I will ask her for deposits. Mr. Pathak wants money, therefore he is a borrower, I will sell him products. So at the end of the day, the bank is a platform. Think of bank as an abstract platform. Now, the moment you take this abstract platform and embed it in anything, in medtech, so the patient is meeting a doctor virtually and consulting. Earlier, you had to pay the money, you needed a platform. Or you went and gave the money to the receptionist, she gave you a receipt, the doctor saw you, blah, blah. In medtech, as you're consulting, you click onto your app and you transfer the money to the doctor. Without your knowing, fintech has played a part in the medtech. So I think if you abstract and look at money movement as the principal task of a bank, it's already in all these, anything. When you're ordering on Swiggy, when you're taking your Uber or whatever, fintech has enabled that category, that platform to become relevant. You know, imagine Uber or Swiggy if there was no fintech. Can you visualize those platforms ever surviving? So I think this convergence and contextualization and marriage of all this is enabled by fintech.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Ayush, would you be raising question? Please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. So thank you for your valuable time. So as you discussed about the fast-moving pace of the banking sector, I would like to ask you, like, how will digital banking hamper the employment generation capacities of the banks?
I think it won't hamper, it will alter. You know, from a period where you were, before I go to what may happen, let me cut back to what has happened, right? If you take last 30 years, when with varying frequency technology has come into banking, go back maybe your grandparents' time, they went to a bank of a branch of a bank where they had originally signed a card with their signature to prove that they are so-and-so. And the bank manager had a ledger. He gave money, noted it in the ledger, and then it became the record. The next time you came, you deposited or you took cash, that again went to the ledger. That was your double entry bookkeeping. That got automated. Then it didn't matter whether you went to branch A in Joka or you went to branch B in Bara Bazaar or wherever, the branch of the bank became connected. Right? So it's evolved with passage of time, and today it's device agnostic, it is location agnostic, and it has become the way we do things. Have banking employees lost from X lakhs? Now it's 12 lakh employees in India alone, right? 12 to 15 lakh employees. In the next 5, 10, 20 years, it may not become 30 lakhs, it may not become 25 lakhs, it will certainly become higher, but I think the fundamental difference is the nature of job will change. You have to be that much more technology friendly and technology welcoming. The nature of job will change, that some of the routine tasks will get done by the device. The intellectual nature of your job will change. You can't just be robotic about what you do. You have to get into advisory roles. You have to get into technology roles. You have to get into detection roles. You have to get into, that's why I said there are 3 types of roles: fintech, regulatory tech, and the bridge between the two. So the roles of people will change. And that whole, I said monetization of data. People who apply their dimag can get the data peeled many layers below. I don't know how much they can do. You're on mute.
Yes, Ayush.
Sir. Yeah, sir, I have another question. Like, sir, we are seeing a lot of fintech companies emerging up, like PhonePe, Paytm, MobiKwik. So, sir, anyhow, will they hamper the business of banks?
In these things, if you again, I go back to what I think Priya's question was, right? It's either you choose to live in a cave and say they will eat you up, or they don't exist, or you have a wonderful handshake and become, because remember, again, go back to the definition of banking. We are the only one who can clear money. The big thing that banks have is the clearing license. Nobody else in the country has a license to clear money. As long as that is there, they need you, you need them. So the best way is sometimes they collaborate, sometimes they compete. That's fine, right? So all these XPay, YPay, ZPay won't survive if there's no backend. So you have to be part of them. They have to be part of you. Who does, see, again, there's a difference. Banks as a concept and banks as a name. Federal Bank or X Bank or Y Bank will survive, will thrive. Z Bank, some other bank may lose out because they haven't applied the same level of enthusiasm and ICFI on them. They have not applied the ICFI principles. That's why.
Well said, well said.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I think Amanda has a question for you.
Yes, yes.
Sir, my question to you is, like we talk about fintech in the urban sector. So, but what would be the scope of fintech at any point of time in rural sector?
Enormous, enormous. Let me give you 2, 3 examples. In Kerala, this plucking coconuts is a massive task, right? As in, getting labor to climb up and pluck coconuts is quite a complex task. And then, once that is plucked, how do you use that various parts of that coconut, not just the core of the coconut, the husk and the shell and blah, blah, blah. So it's like a full ecosystem. In a pre-fintech world, it was either under served, or it was run by groups of people who had control over it. So there was polarization of money and power. Technology come and disintermediate this whole thing, democratize the whole thing. Because what has happened is a chip in the whole collection process is tracking the whole thing of where the husk is, whether it can be made, some coir products can be created. The whole industry of using the entire ecosystem of coconut plucking has suddenly become a full, and the reason I quote this is a live example we are working on. And that is just one of them. It could do that for tea plucking. It could do it for, shrimp farming. You could pick anything, or jute. And it is something that is catching fire. And the great thing about is what we thought were segments of the market who did not want to embrace this are realizing the power of it and are now becoming friends of technology. You have to friend, like all of you are Facebook connected. You have to friend it. You have to friend technology, otherwise you are creating a foe. So I would think this whole friending technology is now no longer an alien concept. It's become central. So I believe, the example I gave you is just very primitive. I am sure brighter minds have many richer examples to offer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Welcome.
Any other question we have from the audience? Yes.
Sir, I'm Shobit. Let me ask it.
Yes, yes.
So, hello, Srinivasan sir. Hello, everyone. I'm Shobit. I work as a professional associate at Federal Bank, Cheruthurthi branch. As we just spoke, it is true that the digital banking is what we are looking forward to. The cashless economy, it is convenient. But what I observed over the last 2 months of working at the bank was there are still a lot more customers who are illiterate, who don't have a smartphone. They still believe that until something is printed on a passbook, it's still not then in their account. There are still people who believe so. So And for them, the most intuitive method to interact with the bank is through.
Sorry?
You just got.
With screen is freezed, sir.
So with your line is freezed. Okay, we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shobit.
Hello.
Yeah, your line froze.
Okay, sir. Over the last 2 months of my observation, what I understood that there are still a lot of customers who are illiterate and who don't have a smartphone, and they still believe that until something is printed on their passbook, it's not in their account. There are still people who believe so. In my opinion, the most intuitive method for them to interact with the bank is through a conversation. So they just come in and ask what's the balance and what's their transaction. That's how it works for them. So in my opinion, if you have a virtual assistant like Alexa in the native language built through a call-based connection, then that'd be a very simple option for people like that.
Absolutely.
So that they can
right.
Yeah, they can just call the phone number. We can verify their identity using the phone number. And if you have a Malayalam or Hindi or Tamil-based virtual assistant, they could just ask the questions to them. If the virtual assistant cannot solve the question, then it can be escalated to a customer service executive. So the people visiting the branch could be reduced, thereby improving the customer convenience and the cost of the bank for taking customers getting in and going out of the branch. So we could do much more relevant.
You're 100% right. And that's why I said, what we are seeing now is a trailer. What is going to play out in the years ahead is, and today we think, see, the next big thing in this whole journey is voice.
Yeah.
Voice-led, right? And what I'm saying is nothing great. I'm sure it's already happening and happening at scale. Alexa is one. You could pick any of the other devices and, you would just speak into it and it'll happen. Even our own Federal Bank's mobile banking capability, I think our team is working on just multi-language, voice-based. So this is a reality. You just speak to it. I book a car. It'll book a car. Show me my balance. It will, because it's voice recognition and that voice is connected to you. See, device connecting to individuals, unique parts, voice, iris, biometric are now not new. It is only has to be practiced. And it will happen. If it's not this month, it will be in a few months from now. That's why I said a while back, kids will be born with chips or will be implanted chips when the moment they arrive.
Yeah,
I'm sure all of you have seen the WhatsApp where a girl has some 5 fingers with various things and speaking to a mother with no device in hand. I'm sure you've seen that WhatsApp that's doing the rounds. It's not imagination any longer. It's probably just only scaling up that it's waiting.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that instead of we actually putting this thing into our Fed mobile and applications, we have these systems hosted in a server. Then a person could call, just call like a normal phone call, and that person could talk to a virtual assistant over the other end.
Yeah,
that could actually
will happen.
Make it quite intuitive for normal people. Our generation is pretty fine with the app assistants and all, but I can see since I've been in the branch for the last 2 months, I can see there are a lot of people who still don't know the money is in their account until it is printed on their passbook.
Correct.
They still believe that if it is not printed onto their passbook, they still believe that it is not in their account anymore.
Very well. We have got another question. NPCI has made a decision on putting 30% cap for third-party UPI apps. What can be the pros and cons to this when users are concerned? NPCI recently put a cap of 30%.
Yeah, I think, these are all evolving. In the context of one is control, ensuring there is fair play and not monopolization. But I'm sure with passage of time, this will get liberated. I don't think these are finite. It's an evolution. From 0, it's become 30. And I'm sure over passage of time, they'll discover that, you can't. I do believe these are being done to control the system in the early stages, because there's fear that somebody will. The whole architecture around privacy of customer and non-intrusiveness is not fully developed. It is developing. So the regulators will be watchful of how it's shaping up. So to that extent, I think these controls are likely to be there, but I also believe in passage of time, it will get sort of refined.
Sir, I have got a question.
Yes, Satiki, go ahead.
My question is, basically I teach business strategy, and I have seen, the history of strategy indicates that wherever there is a fight between a disruptor and the legacy player, this is a game of, your overhead, your cost structure and all. So fintech has got huge advantage over banks. So I agree that banking will be there, but will bank be able to fight against these, players who can operate with, very thin margin? So if you see the history, mini meal disrupted integrated meal. We have seen Barnes and Noble disrupted by Amazon. So thousands of examples. Canon versus Xerox and all. It was a game of overhead, and it is a game of perspective. So as you were talking about that, probably, banking will never go away, but will bank be fight against those agile fintech company? That is the part one. And, of late, if we have seen the encouragement and enthusiasm in capital market as far as the fintechs IPOs are concerned, like Ant Group in China, which indicates that probably there will be a tectonic shift as far as the way this banking, financial market operates. So how could, as a senior most person of your bank, how do you see, the banks reacting this kind of, threat, and how could they, fight against this threat? That's my question.
I think when Professor of Strategy asks a question, how can I argue with that, right? When Professor Roy is asking that question, it is you're stating a very valid point, but I believe in two things. One is, this is not a zero-sum game. It's not this or that, right? Ant will come. Ant may get $300 billion of market cap on time zero. Unfortunately, their IPO got stalled. If and when they get it cleared, they will come. Maybe it won't be 300 this time. Maybe it will be $200 billion. So it's a valuation game, and they will become a power. But keep in mind, they are still not. They are the originators. They are not carrying a balance sheet. 98% of what Ant originates is sitting on the bank's balance sheet. They are just, in some sense, a very glorified DSA. So there will be still the JP Morgans and the Citibank and the HSBCs and the federal banks and the blah, blah, blah will survive. That's why there will be a fundamental construct change between those who adapt better and those who are laggards. One. Two, in 3, 5, 7 years, somebody can disrupt an Ant. This is a continuously evolving game. That's why I keep saying in all these things, we have to go to the design principles, which is why I outlined what I thought were design principles. I'm sure that there are smarter people who will find better design principles, but these principles have to be constant. The practices have to be who adapts better, who executes better. Will an Ant come and disrupt? It is already done. But you know what? Ant is disrupted. At the same time, the others have gained in market cap. At the same time, a PhonePe and a Paytm and a Google Pay are surviving, are doing so-called well. Just a relatively smaller bank like me, from 50 crores a month on mobile banking, it's 9,000 crores a month. So to believe that it is just 0 or 1 is not correct. Will there be stunning disruptors? Answer is yes. Will there be some casualties on the way? Absolutely yes. Will everybody be a dead body lying along the way? No. Those who are agile and switched on and decide to compete and collaborate will be ahead of the pack. Today, Big Billion Days and Amazon's, whatever, the festive season. Can those sales happen just on Amazon Pay? If it were possible, why would Federal Bank or an HDFC Bank or an Axis Bank be more coveted by those players? On the 4 days of Flipkart sales, my customer did 50 crores of transactions. My customers, which if they didn't do, Mr. Flipkart would have lost that. Or Amazon did 50 crores. Amazon Pay was the only solution they would not have. So all I'm pointing out is that this is a Your point is 100% right. I can't argue at all. It's absolutely true that disruptors will come and those will create a have and have not situation. But I think the crucial point is flexibility, nimbleness, lower overheads. But I go back to the theme of monetizing data. Those who are smarter, at the end of the day, I have 1 crore customers. As a bank, I know every aspect of how they deal their money because I see the transactions. If I'm smart and regulatorily compliant and non-intrusive, I can do wonders with that data than anybody else can. What are the ants and others doing? They're exploiting the gaps of us. So we decide to work with them on most occasions, on occasions compete with them. So there will be the stronger for longer theme will prevail. That's what I see. Jury is out. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Professor Pathak.
Yes, yes.
If you allow,
yes,
can
please,
I ask a question?
Yes, please, Sujoy.
Sir, in a recent report by Research and Market 2020, it has been observed that India accounted for the highest fintech adoption rate, which is 87%, when the global average adoption rate is 64%. Under this circumstance, I have 3 basic questions. Question number 1, how will cybersecurity be ensured, which is a major area of concern? Question number 2, how this fintech will scrutinize the risky transaction, that is bad assets and all, and will it be able to fulfill the financial inclusion agenda of Ministry of Finance, Government of India? So,
I think your questions are extremely valid and extremely relevant also. First thing, I think just like how India moved from handset phones to mobile phones much faster than the rest of the world, it jumped a generation, right? With the emergence of the 2G, 3G and the spectrum and the sale of spectrum and the emergence of mobile phones, India actually jumped a generation on telecom. And that facilitated this whole mobile banking or banking anywhere theme. So in some sense, you may be aware, Africa was the biggest first player of this whole payment wallets. Or a byproduct of that, all the 3 areas that you spoke about are going to be enabled. Inclusion, I said, there are 2 billion people in the world are underbanked or unbanked. No other way than using the Jam Trinity, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, right? In India, when the whole bank account opening spree happened about 4 or 5 years back, 30 crore accounts came into the country, all by digital capabilities. And that's now enhanced further because with video KYC and Aadhaar and mobile, you don't have to step out of your desk or your office or your home or your bed to open your account. And that is no longer the preserve of the wealthy and the rich. It's just the preserve of the digitally friendly. And I want to make it very clear that digital friendliness is nothing to do with economic well-being. If you access digital friendly, digital unfriendly, economic low end and economic wealthy, all 4 quadrants you can populate in India. The interesting part is the quadrant which is the digitally friendly and economically relatively better off is the fastest growing part of India, and the rest is following, only led by technology. When money is moved directly in your DBT into the account of the individual, that's driven by digital capability. So I think inclusion will happen. Keeping pace regulatorily is the biggest challenge. And I think that's what India is, the whole RegTech I mentioned is an important deliverable on how technology is not constrained by regulatory short-sightedness, but it is enabled by regulators and transaction monitoring at the highest level. And I'm sure there is a lot of science built into it. I think he dropped off. But
sir, I have a question.
Yes, Nirendu.
This is Professor Nirendu Konar. This is related to cryptocurrency. So with the tokenization of the economy, and the evolution of the cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and other coins, do you think the utility of money controlled by government will reduce over time?
I think it may, but I don't know what time horizon. In fact, I had every year, rather not every year, every now and then I share with my colleagues at work some themes that may emerge. So when 2020 opened, I shared some themes with my colleagues, and one of that is a digital currency will be real in the coming years. No, I don't know whether it's 3 years, 5 years, but I was pleasantly surprised. Within 3-4 months of my saying that, I saw China is already out with the digital currency, regulator-enabled digital currency. So once it starts in one geography or one domain, it's likely to spread reasonably across the world. So I do think in the next 3-5 years, you will see digital currencies which are regulator blessed becoming a vibrant alternative. But again, I go into the same realm of these are inevitable. Whether it replaces money or increases the circulation of both coexist depends on how economic bloom happens. But just cut back to India, 130 crore people with different economic capabilities and different digital involvement. That's why I gave you that 4-quadrant. If you plot India into that, we will say that each of them are 10 countries put in one. So you're going to find this journey, many of our younger colleagues who are 20s, by the time they're 50s, 60s, when we would have probably crossed over half that quadrant. So this is a, I don't know, 30, 50, 70-year journey. Certainly not in my time, probably not in Professor Nirendra's time, but some of our younger colleagues maybe yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. This next question is by Mr. Ramchandran. Fintechs need a tie-up with a bank or NBFC to manage their capital and run their business successfully through some APIs. I'm just asking whether my understanding is right.
He's right. They need a partner. And I said banks are the only one that can offer the clearing partnership. So they will partner with banks. I'm not saying it's going to be permanent. There will be some digital regulatory evolution that may happen, which may allow straight through. But connecting to the clearing system of the country is only through the banks right now. And banks have, that's why we've developed the API capabilities that banks can plug into, and many of them work with banks. And again, it's a polarization. Some of us are better than others. So there's a connection, we get larger share.
Okay.
Madam Durga has a question.
I have a very naive question. No, Madam Shah. Anyway, it's a very naive question. So how do you think the public sector banks are going to do in this regime? All that you discovered, that the banks need to be agile and the banks need to sort of, keep up with the changes that are happening. Maybe, as I said, in India, maybe it's a slightly sensitive question, but leaving aside a bank like SBI, how do you think the public sector is going to cope?
I think, see, the ownership versus practice, we must divorce, right? Because the same ownership is SBI and another bank. SBI has outclassed everybody and has developed it, right? So I think it's not about ownership, it's about leadership. As the governance structure creates leadership that is sustained and not revolving door, you will find necessity and wise leadership will have to do it. Otherwise, they'll be history. They'll be consigned to caves. So I do think it will happen. In my belief, all of them are smart people, realize the requirement. Some may do way better and some may fall off. And that's true for private sector too. If I decide to be very lethargic about it, despite being private sector, I could be in the same hole. So I would say we must divorce ownership and leadership.
Yeah, except that in the private sector, there is stronger accountability than in the public sector.
It's changing. That's why the governance structure I said is important. And I do think it's changing with a lot of developments that are happening. They've woken up to the fact that if you don't, you will be consigned to history books.
Probably they will take more time, public sector banks.
That's India, right? Because nothing in India happens overnight, right? Yes. Actually, some happen, some do happen. I don't want to be.
But State Bank is way ahead. State Bank is way ahead of other public sector banks, basically, as far as this.
They are a giant. They own 25-30% of Indian banking system.
Yes.
They are not a lightweight, right? So,
yeah.
But anyway, that's for the SBI chairman to speak. I'll speak about my bank.
The next question is by Sei Pragya.
Professor Pathak, I have a marketing plug at this point.
Yeah, okay. So what we
nothing.
Just take this question.
Nothing. I am saying the hours spent, I noticed about 150 people are there.
Yeah, there were about 180. There were about 180 people.
Were there.
Yeah, that means I said something. They got bored and dropped off. But notwithstanding that,
yes,
ma'am, I am suggesting that the whole gang has to become my customer. Otherwise, my effort of speaking to all of you should not be wasted.
So,
right? Starting with Durga and Professor Pathak and the entire gang, I want all of you to become my customers. Before long, Shouvik will be on your backside. Shouvik will be reaching out to all of you.
And I assure you, I'll assign Shataki the task of reaching out to Federal Bank to come for recruitment to IBS Kolkata.
Well, there is a trade. Nothing is free.
Yes, definitely.
Nothing is free.
Yeah.
Right.
No free lunches.
So should we take one last question and close it?
I am okay. Whatever suits.
Yeah. No, if there are we can ask. Yeah.
There's one question. Do customization and enhanced data tools reduce the requirements for the wealth advisor skill set?
I think it does. I mean, in the sense, in everything you have to believe that it's a journey, but, this whole robo-advisors is catching fire. Algorithm-based advisory is catching fire. But will I be a slave to that yet? Mindset. And some may be completely comfortable with that. And older generation may want to get advice by a trained relationship manager who's been there and is understanding. So I think it's a evolution, but you can see that it's migrating. And you can see that the whole growth of wealth or wealth creation aspect of money is something that is getting disintermediated by technology for privacy, for secrecy. And so you use algorithms and data to do that. But the more very wealthy, actually you will find huge level of lethargy in the super wealthy to do digital. They like pampered by human. In fact, the mantra of Federal is digital at the fore, human at the core. We don't want to become a slave to technology. We want technology to help the relationship become better. So digital at the fore, human at the core. So I do think you will find technology leading the way, but may not substitute entirely.
Okay. I don't think we don't have any other question. One last question, sir, I will ask you. These senior citizens are basically scared of using this digital platform. There was a survey conducted a few years back in Kolkata area where it was found out, they asked senior citizens why you are coming to the branch regularly. So they gave a reason which was really very surprising, but it's obviously, they say that we don't have anybody to talk to. We go to the branch because we want to talk to the staff who are very good and we want to chat with them. And that's what I personally feel. This traditional banking is not going to go away. There will be people, there will be segments of people who will go to the branch, particularly in the rural sector. Somebody said that, yes, unless they see their entry in the passbook, they will not, shift over to the platform. So what is your opinion? Traditional banking is going to survive ultimately.
Absolutely right. That's why I said digital at the fore, human at the core. It can't be either or. It has to be both. And India, for many, many years, will see this. Till we become a society where, everything is. It's not that old, young. It could happen to even the younger people. Yeah. I think it's the same. Right. The older people may have more time because they've retired and they like that chat and a coffee with the branch manager. But let's not kid ourselves. That's a very important engagement. It's a very good thing. Even a branch manager who may be 30 would love it when a 70-year-old lady or man walks in, because while the coffee is going on, in his mind is calculating, how do I get the fixed deposit of this customer? How do I renew the fixed deposit of the customer and keep it with my bank and not shift it on that? These are all, there is a two-layer transaction. One is the love and affection, but beneath that, there's a angle going on in all transactions. That's human. So I don't think this will evaporate, this will not disappear, but it will reduce the incidence. For example, we have just launched, as I speak to you today, you probably know, and I think you mentioned you're a banker in your life. All retired bankers to get their pension have to go prove that they are alive till the time they are alive to the bank once a year.
Life certificate.
Today we have launched, today as I speak to you, our bank has launched, first bank ever in the country, and this is contextual example of what we call Fed eLife. So all that the person sitting at home, a retired gentleman or lady, opens the app, clicks her face, puts her Aadhaar, and gives the coordinates, and we are aware that he or she is alive, and they don't have to walk into a branch and go through the agony. But that doesn't mean we don't want them to come to the branch. They're more than welcome. But the transaction burden of having to go and visit in the pandemic is taken away. I'm very proud of this. It's done exclusively for our retirees. And it's something that we are going live with as I speak to you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. It was really nice. I mean, my students and faculty members would have really learned a lot. And basically the point which we have come to the conclusion that these traditional banking and fintech will definitely survive, and there has to be a collaboration between fintech companies and the banks to do better. And to a certain extent, yes, rural sector will take some time to catch up with this digital economy, digital conversion. So overall, the picture is, I think it's quite good. The technology support is to be taken, and we are all in favor of, thinking that yes, digital platform will ultimately be beneficial both to the customer, to the bank, and also to the fintech companies. With this, I conclude and may request Durga to offer a vote of thanks. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Shyam. Thank you so very, very much for coming in and spending this hour on a Saturday morning, as you said. And as you saw, it's 180 people who may have had better things to do, but came in and heard the webinar, and much, much more, I think, on Facebook also. So I told you that though we are saying 60 minutes, I was quite confident that this would become at least 75 minutes and lots of questions. Thanks a pile. Thank you to the participants, our staff and faculty and students, of course, and various persons from Federal Bank who have logged in, and other students, anybody else who has come in, all our guests. Thank you so much. Shyam, it's been a very successful webinar. Thank you again. Thank you to Shobhik for doing all the coordination. And we will do our trade-offs off screen.
We can work out a model. Yeah, we can work it out.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.